Hey everyone! Today we are going to be looking at the Glorious Panda, a tactile Switch offering from the folks over at Glorious PC Gaming Race. The namesake refers to a popular Frankenswitch in the hobby called the Holy Panda, which was a combination of the stem from a Halo True Switch, which is sold by Drop, and the Invier Panda Switch. Since its rise in popularity, many clones of this Switch have been created, with Drop even selling them as a standalone Switch now. The back of the box reads that this Switch was forged from the original molds of the most legendary Switch in mechanical keyboard history, and boasts that the Glorious Panda is the smoothest and most tactile Switch ever created. Pretty bold words. Okay, so quick disclaimer off the top. Glorious did send these Switches for me to review. However, that's not going to change how I feel about the Switches or how I approach this review. The second disclaimer that I want to make is that I actually haven't tried any other Panda-style Switches, nor have I tried the original Holy Panda. So keep that in mind when you're watching this review. This is really me just going at it from a new Switch on the market, rather than comparing it to those previous iterations. I will be comparing this to other tactile Switches, namely I'm going to be looking at the Duroc T1 as well as the Zelios V2 67 gram. I will be evaluating the Glorious Panda based on what I look for in a Switch personally, how it stacks up in terms of price, as well as how the Switch feels right out of the box and then once it's been tuned a bit. The bottom housing is made from nylon PA66. The spring is a stainless steel spring at a 67 gram weight. The stem is made from palm plastic, and the top shell is made with polycarbonate. The first thing I wanted to do with these Switches was test them completely stock. To do this, I installed them into my hot swappable EpoMaker GK61 60% keyboard. The Glorious Panda Switch is installed into the GK61 XS quite easily, with no more force than usual. This was not the case though when I tried to install these Switches onto my KBD Fans Maja. I had to use considerably more force to get the Switch to click into place on my Maja keyboard as compared to the Durocs or the Zelios. Now, I'm not 100% sure what to attribute this to. It could just be that the housing is a little bit bigger, but just keep in mind that if you do buy these Switches and you install them onto your keyboard, you may need to add a little extra pressure when inserting these onto your PCB, depending on the style of keyboard that you have. For this review, I am using PBT keycaps. Specifically, these are the ePBT gray Japanese keycap set that you can find on kbdfans.com. I'll put a link in the description below. And here's the sound test completely stock. I have to say, for a totally stock experience, the Glorious Pandas felt and sounded great, way above my initial expectations. They are considerably louder Switches than I'm used to, as you'll see in the sound comparison later on in the video, but that's not necessarily a bad thing depending on what you're going for. After getting the stock test out of the way, I began opening up the Switches to begin lubing. For these Switches, I'm going to be using Trebosis 3204 lubricant, and I will also be using Deskey's Switch films as well. I found the Glorious Panda to be more difficult to open than other Switches that I've had experience with, where in this case I actually needed to take some tweezers after opening the side legs to fully separate the components out. Now, this isn't the biggest deal in the world because ultimately you're probably only ever doing this once, but if you were to lube a lot of these Switches, I could see that becoming annoying quite quickly. Fortunately for me, because I am only lubing for a 60% keyboard, it's not too bad. Here is a quick sound comparison of the Glorious Panda unlubed, lubed, and then lubed and filmed. I found that lubing the Glorious Pandas lowered the sound signature on the Switch, as well as removing that slight bit of spring ping in the stock experience. I also found that filming the switches helped to lower the sound signature even further and create a bit more of that Thock sound that's so coveted. For this reason, I decided to fully lube and film these switches. I followed the same process as I do in my switch lubing video, with the exception that I did bag lube the springs. If you're interested in learning more about lubing, be sure to check out my tutorial video with links in the description. I would recommend getting comfortable and putting on a good movie or some tunes, as this is the most time-consuming part of the hobby without question. Now, with all that work done, let's see how much of a difference that made. I really enjoy how the Glorious Pandas feel lubed and filmed. There's no more scratchiness at all, and they feel nice and snappy to type on. While I think they are a very good stock experience, in my opinion, lubing and filming them makes them feel and sound much nicer. Now let's talk about price and competition. Durock T1s are a very popular tactile switch these days, as they come in at a price point of 55 cents US per switch, and you buy it in packs of 10. On the top end of the spectrum, you have the Zelios V2 switch, which is almost double the price of the T1 at $1 US per switch. Again, with the Zelios, you buy them in packs of 10. Finally, the Glorious Panda sits around the middle with the switch price of 69 cents, but you buy the switches in packs of 36. Now, when comparing the three switches from a tactility perspective, I felt that the bump on the Glorious Panda was much more central down on the press as compared to a Zelio, which feels much higher up. I think this ultimately boils down to a personal preference thing, as both feel really good, though I prefer the Zelio feel still. That being said, I'm not sure that the Zelios are worth 31 cents more per switch. That price difference does add up when you are buying more switches for your keyboard or if you're building multiple keyboards. As for the T1, they feel similar to the Glorious Panda in terms of where the tactile bump is, although I like the fact that the Pandas come unlubed and definitely prefer the way that the Glorious Pandas sound for not much more. For those curious though, here's a general sound comparison between the three switches. To sum it up, I think these are a welcome switch offering to the mechanical keyboard community. They're not too expensive, they feel snappy and responsive, and they respond really well to some tuning. Although I think more than anything now, I'm curious to try all of the other various Holy Panda clones, as well as get my hands on some Holy Pandas themselves to see if they are worth the hype or if there are any noticeable differences. Perhaps a video for the future. But have you tried Glorious Pandas yet? What are your thoughts on them? And especially let me know in the comments below how they stack up to other clones on the market if you've tried them. If you thought that video was interesting, it would be great if you would consider liking and subscribing to my channel for more keyboard and tech related content. A big thank you to everyone who's been supporting this channel over the past year, and I'll see you in the next video.